Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Weekly Oscar Talk, episode 15. 15 weeks in, going strong. Lots of guilds to talk about this week. I am joined, as always, by Anthony to talk about the guilds,
Hello, everyone.
and we are going to start off with one of the larger guilds, one of the more important of the one we will be talking about this week, the DGA, which Anthony has not heard what they are yet. The five were Paul Thomas Anderson, Kenneth Branagh, Jane Campion, Steven Spielberg, and Denis Villeneuve.
There we
Nothing
go.
too surprising there. But the DGA almost never lines up with who gets nominated at the Oscars.
Yeah, there's
So
usually one.
I would say that's probably PTA who would be missing now, if I were to guess.
Yeah, I mean, as we saw with Phantom Thread, he can surprise. That film had a lot of support within the Academy in ways that I think did surprise the awards pundits of 2017 and 2018. So he could show up and maybe Branagh misses, but I do think
Maybe.
Belfast is yeah, possibly, but I do think Belfast is a more well-regarded film within the Academy. So it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see if they do line up, or like Taika Waititi getting the DGA and then missing out on the Oscars. Um, if we'll see like one person miss. I think did
Yeah.
Regina King get a DGA?
She did get the DGA. She got the first time though, because it was her first. She didn't get the normal one.
Yes.
I think she just got the first time.
Which I really appreciate that the DGA does that. I think having the DGA Best Director, whatever the
Yeah.
official term is, and then the first time director category, I think is great.
Yeah, it was a good list this year too. There was a ton of good first time feature films. So who's nominated for that is Maggie Gyllenhaal, of course, for Lost Daughter, Rebecca Hall for Passing, Tatiana Hueso for Prayers for the Stolen. Interesting. Lin Manuel Miranda, Tick Tick Boom, Michael Sarnowski, Pig, and Emma Seligman for Shiva Baby.
Wow, it's a
It's a
really
good
great list.
list. I would say I would like to have Fran Kranz to have made that list for Mass, but as we know, that's not getting any attention at all, um, which is sad. And also, what's his name? James Samuel for The Harder They Fall, I would think would also be deserving. But good list. So
And I would say, as far as I think Campion's running away with this, I think especially within the
yeah,
DGA, I think she's definitely going to take this as such a proven director such a well-regarded artist. And for first feature, I'm thinking
I
I'm
would
going
say
to lean.
Maggie.
I think Maggie Gyllenhaal. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Out of that list, I would say so because she's the only one who's even gotten really any other nominations. She got it at the Globe. That's really
yeah.
it.
Would that be the first time two women win at the DGA? Like, I'm trying to see.
I would probably honestly because I
Yeah.
don't know two women have ever won before. I'm pretty sure. So
Let's see. I'm going to
that
check the years
didn't
of.
happen last year because the first time was not Chloe Zhao won for director, but I don't believe a woman won for first time last year.
Yeah, so Darius Motter,
Yeah,
very deservingly so, won for Sound of Metal
definitely.
last year. And then they weren't around. This category wasn't around for Captain Bigelow.
Oh
Um, it,
wow, yeah. So
it the first winner was Alex Garland for Ex Machina, which was also a very deserving win.
very
Alma Harrell for Honey Boy is so far the only woman to win, so Maggie Gyllenhaal would be the
mm,
second winner of the category.
nice. Nice, nice. So nothing too surprising there. I do think one of those five is going to miss out the Oscars, like you said, either Brana or Anderson. Um, I think it used to really only be Hamaguchi who I thought would contend for that spot, but I am thinking maybe McKay could take it. You never know. I also think
They
maybe
do love him. He got
they
in
love him
for
and
Vice
that
when
movie.
Cooper missed out,
Yeah,
for Stars Born. So you could be right there.
and I would also think I don't think so, honestly, but Nightmare Alley has been overperforming at these guild nominations, which we'll get to further ones, but I still don't think that'll happen for Guillermo.
No,
So
I
that's
agree.
that. Pretty much it for the DGA. Um, if I were to say at the Oscars, I would say Anderson misses probably for Hamaguchi. Um, was what I would say right now.
That was, I think, what I predicted last episode. I
Yeah,
still am holding strong to that, as much as I love Licorice Pizza and Anderson's work. But still, I still think it's a possibility that this five DGA does repeat, because I feel like this, unlike I
Mhm.
feel like maybe other years, I feel like the director category is pretty solidified. Like when you
Yeah,
have four, when you have three or four locks, that's a I feel like really interesting place. So we'll see. It'll
definitely.
definitely be interesting to see if the directing branch is going to continue this trend of trying to get people that aren't Best Picture nominees possibly and are from foreign films into the category, which I think is
Yeah,
great because it gives them more awareness, which is the whole point of the Oscars. At least it should be.
yeah, definitely. Also, I don't know, maybe Joel Cohen. I feel like they could appreciate that too, the director's branch, but I
That'd be
doubt that.
crazy.
That would be, but I think it'd be deserving. Um, okay. So now the PGA nominees, nothing too crazy here. Being the Ricardos, Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Power of the Dog, Tick Tick Boom, and West Side Story. Some people thought Spider-Man, some people thought No Time to Die, some people thought House of Gucci. But it was Tick Tick Boom and Being the Ricardos that took those last two spots. I think everything else was the pretty much universal top eight right now.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I think the top nine was expected. I didn't anticipate Tick Tick Boom missing out. It was just a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
people fighting for the 10 spot. Um, and being Ricardo's getting in there. The more I think about it, the more it doesn't surprise me. I mean, now
Yeah,
that I think Javier Bardem, except I do think that the recent news with the Snow White controversy that Peter Dinklage has come out
yeah,
against might help him get more attention for
maybe.
Cyrano. I don't think it will get enough attention to get him in the
I still have
category.
him in there. I still got him.
It's
I have
possible.
faith
It's
in him.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally I see Javier Bardem getting in that fifth spot in Best
Yeah,
Actor. I see Nicole Kidman getting in. So I do think there's more attention and just more people are watching, especially now that a lot of people think Nicole Kidman is the possible front runner, winning the Globe. She has a little bit more attention. It's on Amazon Prime Video, which means everybody can watch it. So I do think there is more awareness for that film, and I could see it getting in there. And it's not as divisive as I feel like a lot of the other movies have proven to be. House of Gucci, even something like No Way Home, the film itself not divisive, but its FYC campaign being divisive. Being
yeah,
Ricardos is just your typical Oscar bait type of film. It's your traditional biopic. They like Aaron Sorkin. He was nominated last year for the Trial of the Chicago Seven. So I think I might predict these 10 PGA noms for my Best Picture uh, predictions.
I would probably agree. I do think Being the Ricardos is probably divisive amongst like the film Twitter space, but probably not amongst like most Academy voters. I would think most of them would appreciate it, and especially if you think about producers, that's like that movie is very like it's about Hollywood, which I'm sure producers appreciate, and it's also like the whole plot of the movie is centered around producing this show, so I'm sure they appreciated that.
Yeah. And it's a
Um,
show that everybody loves. I mean,
yeah,
it's a show that everybody respects. They respect Lucille Ball. And I think the same way that you saw Rami Malek winning Best Actor, it's because they love Freddie Mercury. I think a lot of people are going to be voting for Being the Ricardos in possibly multiple categories for nominations and possible wins because they just love that show and Lucille Ball. There's an adoration that is seen in when they're nominated.
which in my opinion is very disappointing because I don't know, that movie is just so disappointing and just mediocre. I feel like I would take like so many other movies. Like I'd take Spider-Man in over that in Best Picture. I'd take so many other movies over that. I mean, if you're gonna expand it to 10, why does that final spot have to just go to another basic, bland Oscar bait biopic? It's disappointing.
Well, yeah, I feel like a lot of these nominees, these potential nominees, are very safe. They're very feel good. And listen, I definitely think that if you're in the Academy, you should vote what your favorite movies are. There's a reason why they're your favorites. You shouldn't separate those feelings you have. But at the same time, I do think when we look back at this list, it just it feels very safe. It doesn't feel like we're honoring, the true brave and bold visions. That's why I'm hoping something like Power of the Dog can win over a lot of these other safe movies. Not that there's
Yeah,
anything wrong with being a safe movie. It's just that, you know, I feel like, as you're
better
saying,
stuff to
like,
honor.
yeah, you want Best Picture, it stands along so many of these classics, and for a feel good movie to be alongside that, like some of the possibilities, it just doesn't feel like it has that same gravitas that we want from Best Pictures.
Definitely. Agreed. But I like most of the potential nominees. Okay, so now the WGA awards. So starting off with original screenplay, there wasn't a lot. There was a lot of movies that were disqualified in original and adapted, which we can talk about. But in original screenplay, we had Being the Ricardos, Don't Look Up, The French Dispatch, King Richard, and Licorice Pizza. I think that pretty much went as expected, considering what wasn't qualified.
What wasn't qualified for this category?
Let's see. What was it? Because King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Don't Look Up, and Being the Ricardos are all, I think, going to get the Oscars. Belfast was not there and there. That's it.
Which is, it's always very weird. Like Tarantino is not, I think,
Yeah,
eligible for these awards when his
it's
screenplays.
odd.
It's odd. Yeah, I would take French Dispatch out, put in Belfast. I think this is your five.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that without Belfast being here, I think that this is an easy layup for Licorice Pizza and Paul Thomas Anderson. Because this
look out for
organization,
Don't Look Up though. I don't know.
I feel like Don't Look Up is attracting a lot of attention, but I don't think people look at that as a great screenplay. I think this is the type of organization that gave it to Eighth Grade and Bo
Yeah,
Burnham.
yeah.
I feel like Licorice Pizza is definitely the type of movie that this organization likes to award. Don't Look Up. It's the fact that it gets into screenplay. I think it's just because it's showy and it is different from the other nominees, which I think helps because it feels more vibrant. But I don't think when you're voting to win, that's a different conversation. And I don't see Don't
Definitely.
Look Up winning a screenplay award.
No, at least here I don't see it happening. I would say Licorice Pizza is definitely going to win here. I would still say Belfast at the Oscars would win.
Just because I feel like they want to award it somewhere, and now that DeBose or Dunst is winning supporting actress and director is probably going Campion and picture. I mean, it could pull a spotlight, win screenplay, win picture, win two awards. That's still a possible trajectory for the film.
Yeah,
But I agree. I think it's between Pizza and Belfast, and I cannot call that right now.
yeah, yeah. And then adapted screenplay, I believe Power of the Dog was not eligible here. Passing wasn't. Lost Daughter wasn't. So, what was nominated amongst whatever is left? Coda, Dune, Nightmare Alley, Tick Tick Boom, and West Side Story. I think that was also pretty much as expected. That seems like a good list.
Yeah, I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see a lot of these films get in. I think Dune is the sleeper in this category. I do think it could surprise in the same way 1917 surprised. We talked about it on a previous episode that
I think
the
it's going to get nominated. Yeah.
yeah that the work to translate such a seminal text that everybody's familiar with, not only being a very popular book, but it's such a hard subject material to adapt, and so the fact that it
Yeah.
was, I do think that's a worthy screenplay to nominate, and I'm happy it got in here. I do think Lost Daughter and Power of the Dog are definitely getting into this category at the Oscars. Not so sure about Passing it. I think it might be a little too small, and
No.
they look at Ruth Nega or bust.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting. I would probably. Can you run down the nominees again for this?
Yeah. Coda, Dune, Nightmare Alley, Tick Tick Boom, and West Side Story. So I would think Tick Tick Boom and Nightmare Alley would be the two kicked out.
Oh yeah, for the Oscars, those are probably the two. And
Yeah.
then for the win, I feel like leaning. I, See, I don't know.
Here, I would say Coda maybe.
Possibly, yeah, but I mean, it's not a movie that like really challenges you on a
No,
script level.
I wouldn't
Um,
say. I wouldn't say. Not Dune for the win. I don't think.
but
Not Nightmare Alley.
the thing that Coda has for it is that Tick Tick Boom is an adaptation of a Broadway
Mhm.
musical, but that I do think could help. What I'm saying is that you have a lot of like remakes and revivals,
Yeah.
where Coda is their adaptation feels more unique to their version of the story. Um,
Hmm.
because I don't see Nightmare Alley taking this. West Side Story possibly because it's Tony Kushner
Yeah.
and he did do a nice job, but I still think that it's going to be hard for people to award him for a remake, especially when the majority of his work the majority of a script for a musical are songs that he didn't really change
Yeah,
or rework. They just maybe moved some around. So you might have something with Coda, but I do think that the work that was done to adapt and change for the medium of film for Tick Tick Boom is worthy, and I would like to see it win here. So possibly, I'm going to say that's a dark horse.
yeah, yeah. I would lean Coda, but I would also say West Side Story is definitely possible. I don't really know about the other ones. Um, but yeah, nothing too surprising there. Next guild, the Ace Eddie's nominations. Starting off with drama, what was nominated is Belfast, Dune, King Richard, No Time to Die, and The Power of the Dog. And then we can go into comedy after that. I think the only surprise there is No Time to Die. That's taking West Side Story's spot, which is surprising because that was my number two for editing because it's very sound focused. I think it'll still get into the Oscars, but interesting snub.
Yeah, it still will. I am happy to see No Time to Die here because that's a really well edited film, especially at 2 hours and 42 minutes. The fact that to me, it didn't feel that way, I think is a tribute to the editing. So yeah, that's a pretty good list. And Belfast is nominated here.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about that movie. I rewatched it last week. Still not
It's
more enamored
okay.
with it than the first time. Um, but I do think that listen, you play that opening sequence. I do think that could sway a lot of people to get it into the category. I don't think that means West Side Story misses,
No,
but a lot of people are probably maybe counting out Belfast, but as like that's the one that West Side Story is going to replace, and I don't think that's the one. Um,
no, no. I would say in terms of other surprises here, not a surprise. I expected Power of the Dog to be nominated, but I do think I was earlier in the season unsure if that could get nominated for editing, just because it is a very slow, methodical film. But I do think it will now probably get into editing, which therefore boosts its best picture shots very much so.
I mean, I could see a world where West Side Story takes that spot and No Time to Die stays just because we sometimes see a blockbuster get into editing. Force Awakens got into this category.
Yeah,
But I think the thing with Force Awakens was that it was a cultural touchstone. It was, breaking all records. It's still the highest grossing film domestically. And Star Wars, I think, is held more in a special
yeah,
place than Bond. So I feel like that's what helped. Um, and so I think that No Time to Die probably will miss, but I don't think it's 100%. I still think it's a possible venture, especially because if it shows up in sound, if it shows up in visual effects, No Time to Die could get maybe three, and in song, it could end up
yeah.
getting four nominations for the film, which I don't think is, you know, preposterous to imagine.
No, that's more than like probably Tick Tick Boom would end up getting. So pretty good,
Yeah,
pretty good.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So I would say for the Oscar five, I would say Belfast does get in. Dune, Power of the Dog, Licorice Pizza, probably, I think. And then my last spot, um, either West Side Story or Don't Look Up. Probably West Side Story.
I would honestly take out Licorice Pizza and maybe put in your other two, just because I think Don't Look Up
Hmm.
has the splashy, flashy
It does.
editing that like people can look at and say editing, even though it's probably not particularly good editing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that has a better shot than Licorice Pizza because they're both comedic, but where I think Licorice Pizza is the better edited movie. And I always think of like awards things like the reason why Saoirse Ronan wasn't a bigger contender for Lady Bird is that it was such subtle acting. Like
Yeah.
obviously there was so much that went into it, but she was so good at playing that teenager role that it didn't look like she was doing any work, which is a real testament to her work in that film and to her as an actor in general. But I think that's what I think of Licorice Pizza, where the editing enhances the film so well, especially in a lot of the comedic beats, but it's not something that draws attention to it, which it shouldn't. You shouldn't be looking at all these individual aesthetic components individually. They
Yeah.
should work together, and you shouldn't even be cognizant of these individual aesthetic components when you're watching the picture. But it still means that it's not making the same impact on the average Academy voter in the same way that I think it will on Don't Look Up, despite it not
Yeah.
servicing that film as well as it should.
Yeah, I would agree. I would actually probably put in Don't Look Up over Licorice Pizza and then West Side Story. Um, And then for the comedy side of things, what was nominated is Cruella, Don't Look Up, The French Dispatch, Licorice Pizza, and Tick Tick Boom. That's a pretty good list. That's pretty much what was there for the Golden Globes.
And I also think that Corella showing up at the Golden Globes for Emma Stone, Corella showing up here at AACTA's only helps that it does have a small footprint in award
Mm-hmm.
season in the that will lead to, I think, hopefully a best costume design win.
Hopefully,
It's not going to
yeah,
be one of those things that just like they nominate it, but then it goes to like something else. It goes like, you know,
yeah,
one of these like more best picture friendly contenders. I do think that the fact that it's showing up here in more surprising places is
yeah.
good news for that film, and it's deserving for this editing award. The editing, especially at the beginning when they do the montage
It is
of
well
her,
edited. Yeah,
yeah, and also when Corella finally breaks free and they have the close montage where she's like
yeah,
upstaging Emma Thompson. There's some
yeah.
really well done
Good
montages in
montages.
the movie.
Yeah, definitely deserving there. Speaking of costume, the Costume Designer Guild Award nominees came out, um, and they break it up in different categories. So, excellence in sci-fi, film, or fantasy was Dune, The Green Knight, The Matrix Resurrections, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, and The Suicide Squad. Good list there. I think that's Dune's to take home.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely there. It's
Yeah,
just inventive, it's original, it's creative. Yeah, definitely. And I still think it's a possible winner for the
possible.
Oscar
Yeah,
if they really embrace it in the same way that they embrace the world of Wakanda for Black Panther. Um,
yeah.
though I think there isn't the same cultural impact
No,
that those
and
costumes
it's
have
not as
because
showy either.
yeah, so
Not as
that's why
colorful.
yeah, that's why it's keeping me. But again, it could Mad Max this. I still think that's a
It could.
possibility that it could just sweep these technical categories.
Yeah, it's my number two for costumes still. So if Cruella disappoints, I do think it would probably win.
Yeah, which would be
Um,
deserving. I know I was
Definitely.
talking about like a
Yeah,
possible Best Picture contender unfairly taking it from Cruella, but if Dune
yeah,
won, I would be fine with that.
agreed. I mean, for that outfit that Rebecca Ferguson wears alone with those jewels all over her face, that's very
Yeah,
cool.
sounds good.
Um, Excellence in contemporary film. You could tell they kind of ran out of options here. The nominees were Coming to America, Don't Look Up, In the Heights, No Time to Die, and Zola. So yeah, interesting. None of those costumes, maybe Coming to America, the rest of them don't really stick out to me very much.
In the Heights does definitely. I mean, there are many different musical
Yeah,
numbers that
they just
are
seem like
Broadway
normal,
specific.
yeah, modern clothes.
I would In the Heights is definitely a worthy. I mean, it's a worthy nomination in a lot of categories, and it's just getting forgotten because it didn't make money,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
stinks.
Um, but that's definitely I definitely think that's worthy, especially when you like look at like the Carnival de Barrio sequence where they're
Yeah,
all repping their flags of like Cuba and the Dominican Republic, and I believe a lot of the costumes do represent the colors of those flags and that heritage. And then the scene Paciencia y Fe when
yeah,
Olga Meredith's Abuela is walking through her life in Tableau, like the costumes there. It's a
that was good.
very,
Yeah,
very worthy costume nominee. I would probably consider it for the Oscar. So I'm happy it's here.
yeah. In terms of who would win here, I would say Coming to America because it's Ruthie Carter.
Possible, though, you know, that name doesn't always get her immediate
Yeah,
success.
it's just the
I think it's out
competition
of,
isn't like
yeah,
not there's not much against her, I don't think.
yeah, but I mean, I thought there wasn't much against her for Dolmite is my name, and she somehow lost
Yeah,
the Oscar. So she didn't
yeah,
get nominated for that. So,
yeah. I don't think this is
um,
gonna get nominated at the Oscars. I just mean in this individual part. I think
yeah,
it would
no, I
definitely.
agree. It's possible. What, can you just run through them one more time?
Yeah. Coming to America, Don't Look Up, In the Heights, No Time to Die, and Zola.
Yeah, I think because yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of strong competition here. The only one that's like in award season in general, I think, is Don't Look Up. But like, what costumes were in Don't Look? Like what the pantsuit
Nothing.
that Meryl
Yeah.
Streep wears.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, maybe people take their maybe people who had a love for In the Heights, maybe they can award it here. I don't know. It's an interesting
Yeah.
category. Um, and then No Time to Die probably. I would probably say it's in between In the Heights and um, your pick, which
Coming
is
to America.
Coming to America. Um, so possibly, I don't know necessarily the history of like I always look at it as like The Greatest Showman versus Coco. Where The Greatest Showman, This Is Me was like a bigger song, but because Coco was the better movie, they went Coco. And so maybe it's like, do they go with maybe the costumes that are maybe a little bit more like, that put more effort into the costumes, possibly. Not to say that the other competitor didn't, but or like, are they? How are they voting? Are they voting which the better movie? And they'll just say, okay, well, In the Heights is the better movie, therefore we'll just give it this award. I don't know their
Um,
history of this, but that's
yeah,
a possible way they could
I
go.
think in general, most guilds would probably go based more on the craft, I would say. Just like, I mean, Suicide Squad, which was a terrible movie, still won makeup. I think they do mostly go off of craft, but I do think the quality of the film. I mean, with a lot of these voters too, you don't even know how many of them they've seen. They might just be looking at images of the makeup or the costumes and be picking based off of that, sadly.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
it's interesting. It's definitely a category that, even though it probably won't make huge waves in terms of
no,
influencing any future vote, it's a fun category to look at because of that.
yeah. Then excellence in period film, which has probably more of the Oscar contenders here: Cruella, Cyrano, House of Gucci, Nightmare Alley, and West Side Story. That's all pretty big Oscar contenders there for the category.
Yeah, and probably again, I think Cruella will maybe take this unless
I hope
if
so.
Cruella was in the right. Was Cruella in the other category?
It was not. No,
It was
this
not.
is the
Okay,
only
so
one. Yeah,
this would be the only place to award it. So yeah, probably Cruella. But again, there might be an admiration for the craft of Nightmare Alley or the craft of West Side Story. These definitely feel like the more competitive categories, so we
yeah.
could see a couple things happen. But I'm
Period.
still.
Yeah, period is definitely always I think the biggest in terms of costumes. I would say these five minus replace Cyrano with Dune, and I would say that's probably my Oscar five.
Very possible. Very possible.
Yeah. Now into another guild, the American Society of Cinematographer nominees, where sadly we have even more West Side Story snubbage for Best Cinematography from Film, Belfast, Dune, The Power of the Dog, Tragedy Macbeth, and Nightmare Alley. Tragic. West Side Story is
Belfast beat out West Side. I can't. I
exactly,
can't.
exactly.
It's like
They just
I'm
put black and
talking.
white over it, and they're just like amazed by it. Like,
Yeah,
wow,
it's not like it's okay. Again, don't get me started.
very
I don't
disappointing.
like this. Isn't like I feel like this. Like in years past, you wondered like, well, is it just because it's in black and white that it's here? And I feel like a lot of times, like, no, there's real craft there. This is just black and white. Like, there's
Yeah,
not one shot I can think of that showed me like, oh, that's good cinematography. That was an interesting angle. That image had deeper meaning to the text. Like, yeah, and the fact that it's stubbed West Side Story is like ridiculous because I think the way that
yeah.
um, Steven Spielberg's longtime collaborator, who is escaping me right now,
Janu
um,
something, I think.
yeah, Janusz Kaminski.
Yeah,
The way he shoots that not only gives deeper meaning but new meaning to an
hmm
established text. It's beautifully done, and it's also musicals are very hard to shoot, especially because a lot of times there's a lot to execute within the frame,
yeah,
and that's just as much on the cinematographer's shoulders as the director's shoulders because he's the director has the vision but the cinematographer has to execute it. So
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, for
it's
the puddle shot.
ridiculous. Yeah. And so I would imagine that West Side Story takes place at Nightmare Alley, and then that's your
Yeah,
five.
yeah.
And Tragedy Macbeth acts as a lighthouse type of nominee that'll get in here, maybe production design, and
That's
that would
good
be
use
it.
of black and white. Yeah,
Yes. Oh my God.
it's
Yes.
more fitting
Just put those movies like together,
next to each other.
and like you can see like how black and white and shadows and like the gradient and the yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah. They did do a little spotlight here for Pig, Titan, and Jockey, which is I've only seen two of those, but Pig and Titan did have great cinematography, so good for
Definitely.
them,
Yeah.
deserving. Okay, next guild thing. Where did it go? The AACTA, which is Australian awards, had some interesting winners here. I believe film was Power of the Dog, actor was Benedict Cumberbatch, actress Nicole Kidman, supporting actor Cody Smith McPhee, supporting actress Judi Dench. director Denis Villeneuve and screenplay Aaron Sorkin. I do think you can see a little Australian bias in some of these picks. Like, I think Nicole Kidman is still the front runner, but I do think there's some bias there, and I do think Sorkin winning screenplay. I don't know about that choice.
Well, also, like, didn't they shoot? Oh, they shot in New Zealand for Power of the
Power of the
Dog,
Dog,
right?
I believe so.
Um, so maybe that had a near. I
Yeah,
know they're not the same, but a
yeah,
near hometown advantage. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I think this men's Cody Smith McPhee continuing to rise. I we have talked about the possibility of supporting actress. A lot of people are just thinking Ariana DeBose is running away with this, and I don't think that's the case. I don't think this is like the one to like, oh, here it goes, here it starts to
yeah,
change.
yeah.
But just I do keep in mind that I do think Ariana DeBose is fallible. I don't when you look
Maybe.
at the characters that have won 2 Oscars, Vito Corleone, Brando, and De Niro's interpretation of that character were completely different. The same with Ledger and what Phoenix with the Joker. Ariana DeBose, it's not that
I
different
would
of a
say it's
performance from
different.
Maria Moreno.
I'd say she did even better than Rita Moreno, in my opinion.
It's not that doing better, it's just what she's doing on like what she's doing, like there isn't necessarily that big a difference in how she's approaching the role. She may have done it, executed it better, and that I think just comes from deeper resonance and relevance and authenticity to the culture. But I don't know, I just feel like Kirsten Dunst has been working in this industry for 20 years. She's never been nominated, which, granted, that could be
Yeah,
like the nomination is the win,
I
but
think
she's going up
that is
against
what it is.
somebody. But she's also going up against somebody who's never been nominated. It's not like a Scarlett Johansson type of situation where she's going up against like Renee Zellweger, who's already won. So
Yeah,
I still think that DeBose, again, I still think currently I could see her winning very clearly, but I don't think it is 100% that she's running away with this in the same way that people think Cody Smith McPhee's running away with Best Supporting Actor. I mean, we still have a
well,
long
that's
way to
not
go. We're about 2 months out. I don't
about,
think Will
yeah.
Smith is guaranteed. I don't think Ariana DeBose is guaranteed, and I don't think Nicole Kidman is guaranteed. The same way
No,
that many people are thinking that's happening. So, I mean, Cody
I
Smith McPhee is the only one I see happening.
I would say he's the one I'm least confident in the front runners. I would say Ariana DeBose, never say 100%, but I would say 99% chance she's going to win. Actor, I don't know. I still think Andrew Garfield maybe, but that's crazy. Actress, I would lean towards Nicole Kidman. I just don't, I'd say it again. I don't see Cody Smith McPhee happening. It's just not.
Again, I would agree with you, but I don't see like I would agree with you any other year, but I don't see
Mm.
anybody else actually. I don't see Troy Kotsur
Troy,
getting that
really?
award. No, I just don't. I don't see Coda I don't see Coda winning any Oscars, to be honest. I don't. There are so many feel good movies, and when we've kind of all decided that Belfast seems to be the one that's going to get into a lot of the craft categories like editing and cinematography, and that it comes from Brana, who's a very established name, like, and then we have Will Smith possibly winning, currently the front runner for Best Actor. Like, are we really going to have 3 feel good movies in contention for the top awards? I just don't see it happening, and I, I don't what Troy Kotsur's doing, I don't think is any. It's nothing that's more important or more worthy than what Marley Matlin's doing. And if Marley Matlin's not even showing up in the nomination, like, is this the surrogate for the whole acting community of
I
Coda? I don't know.
I would say
Yeah.
I think he does give the better performance in that film, but I think that's only because he is given in the script more opportunities to show emotion. Marley
That's
Matlin
the
doesn't really
scene.
have a scene equivalent to that truck scene.
Yeah, but it's just that's why for me it's just like I don't like if Paul Racy couldn't win this category, and I think
Well,
they give
he got
better.
a lot more competition though. Like Daniel Kaluuya, no one was stopping him.
But do you think if Paul Racy was this year, would you maybe have him win? Do you think he would have?
If he was this year, maybe I would say he would probably be like the Troy Kotzer.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I
I
probably would.
mean,
I just don't. Cody Smith McPhee, he's young. There's not a single like scene in that movie where it's like, oh, this is his Oscar clip. He doesn't show a ton of emotion. I don't know. I don't know why he's sweeping.
I just think it's because we're dealing with a category that usually has lead actors in the running, and this year they all seem to be supporting, and I definitely appreciate that. And I think that's why, because what this reminds me of is the visual effects battle that happened in 2019 at the Oscars with First Man versus Infinity War, where Infinity War was the more showy visual effects nominee, and First Man was the more subtle. And I think you just saw that there was a more concerted effort to award the more subtle work, even if Infinity War
Yeah,
was deserving.
I
So I
think
think that's what I see Cody Smith McPhee being. There's a just especially after Daniel Kaluuya's one last year, where it was very
yeah.
big and powerhouse acting. Not to say that he didn't have nuances in his performance. I feel like there's a yin and a yang to this, and we're on the yin that means we're going to give it to a subtle performance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to necessarily go back and forth like that. I do think with visual effects, they tend to go with whatever nominee is closest to a Best Picture nominee, which I think that year was First Man. Um, this closest just got, sadly. But yeah, I think in terms of the way these awards, these Australian awards, correlate with the Oscars, they almost always get film wrong. I'm pretty sure out of the past, let's see, one out of the past 6 years, they only got the film right one time. They only matched with the Oscars in terms of the film, which would be Parasite. And then in terms of acting, in past years they used to be better at it, but last year they got 0 out of 4. The year before they only got 1 out of 4. So I don't know how accurate that is per se. And their director spot is spotty too. So I would think the takeaways here would probably mostly be Nicole Kidman and Cody Smith McPhee.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still not on the Nicole Kidman train. I don't think that's a Oscar-winning performance, and I
It
don't
shouldn't be,
necessarily
no.
see it happening.
But neither
Um,
was like Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody or Judy Garland, Renee Zellweger. I
well,
don't
Renee
think any of
Zellweger
them.
and Judy, I think, was much better than those other two. I think there was
She
definitely
was better, but I don't think it was, especially against the
no. I
nominations.
mean, I would have given it to Johansson and Marriage Story, Lupita Nyong'o, and Us. There were definitely other worthy, but I think she was along those three. But I think Rami Malek, what I think a lot of people really respected, not only was his, I think a lot of people loved Freddie Mercury, as we've been saying.
Yeah,
So that powered him. Like a lot of people really felt that he was infectious and very energetic and electric. And I also think that there was probably among the industry insiders, I think there was a lot of compassion for what he had to deal with the ousting of Bryan Singer, and then having to deal with that and kind of bring the movie home. And you couldn't really feel that while watching. You didn't feel this titanic shift that was happening behind the scenes while watching it necessarily. It didn't mean that it was a great film, but I don't think it was as terrible as it could have been, given that it lost its director. And I think they attributed
no,
that to that performance. With Nicole Kidman, she's just doing, some nice work as Lucille Ball. It feels
I,
very much like
yeah,
her HBO work that she's been doing. It doesn't feel like, again, we were talking about gravitas earlier with the Best Picture slate. That doesn't feel like it has the gravitas to win Best Picture
no,
or Best
no, that,
Actress. Excuse me.
yeah. I would, Nicole Kidman is definitely worthy of having a second Oscar. I just don't think it should be for this.
Oh yeah,
Same way Renee Zellweger is worthy of a second Oscar. Maybe, actually, I don't know about that. I take that back.
she was worth it. She was. I mean, she should have won for
Maybe,
Chicago. She's a very. I feel like a lot of people underrate her because she hasn't been in the sphere
yeah,
for a while, and because of the horribleness of how she was kind of like pushed to the side.
yeah.
Um, but Renee Zellweger, put some respect on Renee
She's a
Zellweger.
good actress. I was thinking of like other people who like probably deserve a second one more than she does per se. But
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people who deserve a nomination,
First,
let
yeah,
alone.
Emily Blunt, give her a
Yeah.
nomination at some point, please.
So
Yeah. Next guild, the Cinema Audio Society. Their nominees for motion picture live action: Dune, No Time to Die, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Power of the Dog, West Side Story. This would probably be my Oscar 5.
interesting to see Spider-Man get in there. Wasn't necessarily predicting it or expecting it. Um,
Yeah.
but this could bode well. I could see Spider-Man getting visual effects possibly. I know we talked about that last week with that or Shang-Chi. Maybe they both get it
Yeah,
in. But if Spider-Man could get, especially after that great deadline interview where Pete Hammond interviewed all three Spideys,
yeah,
I think very good. It got a lot of attention.
yeah. I
But
think
so I
too.
could see maybe a visual effects, a sound. I don't know beyond that if it's going to get anywhere.
I don't
But
think so.
as we've been saying this entire season, we're dealing with a different type of voting because they have to fill 10 spots. The last time they filled 10 spots, we had nominees like District 9 and Avatar and Toy Story 3. So
Yeah, I would say
don't
this movie's gonna go the Endgame route. I actually don't know if I would have it in sound then if I'm comparing it to Endgame because lots of people thought Endgame would get in for that, but it didn't. So maybe it
I,
would get in at the Oscars.
I think what hurt Endgame overall was two factors. One, I think it was unfortunate that at the time, I think we should have been honoring the achievement of the MCU. Martin Scorsese comes out with this I mean, that became the Irishman press conference every
Yeah,
step of the way, or the press, run of the movie was just him talking about Marvel movies. And I think that hurt. And
yeah,
also the fact that I feel like a lot of people have the same regard for black films that they have about superhero films, and that they nominate one and that's enough, which is I think that's despicable. I think the fact that
hmm,
you kind of I feel like that it's unarguable that they gave it to 12 Years a Slave for Best Picture. Then they were like, all right, we're good for a couple of years because then
yeah,
Thelma underperforms and like Oscar so white happens for 2 years in a row. And I feel like the superhero thing was like, well, Joker's in and it's in a big way, and so they were like, all right, then we don't need to do Endgame. Um, Spider-Man, though, I think what helps it is that it didn't come out in April. It came out in December,
hmm,
so it's a little bit fresher. And people may credit the movie as Pete Hammond did in that interview as like the return to movie theaters. That it really prioritizes the movie going experience and saving theaters. Some people may look at it as like it's
some people
engulfing
may not
theaters
like that,
too
but
much. So
yeah,
it's all about how it hits at the right time when people are filling out that ballot. I don't think it's impossible. It would probably be like 11 or 12. Like it's in that class of who
it'd be in
could
the
get in.
15, I would say, in the
Um,
top 15.
yeah, I would put it in the same class as Drive My Car, House of Gucci, Being the Ricardos. They're all fighting for that spot,
I would
and
have
just
No Time to Die as the bigger blockbuster than Spider-Man, just a little bit higher, just because I do think it is performing much better with the guilds.
I would put it. Yeah, I think No Time to Die also is in that group. So maybe they both cancel each other out. So very
Yeah,
interesting. That being said, I am surprised to see it here in sound, and I agree with you. It
yeah,
could translate, but not necessarily because. But the other thing too is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, a December release, kind of I think took Endgame out of a lot of its possible
yeah.
categories. It took it out of score. It took it out of sound.
I
So
do think Star Wars is much more respected amongst Academy voters than Spider-Man would be.
now, yeah, I think it always happens. It takes like 20 years, and then the
Yeah,
same when Star Wars wasn't really. People forget this or don't know this, that the same Star Wars is in cinema was a discussion that happened along the release of Return of the Jedi, and Siskel and Ebert
yeah,
had to like defend Lucas saying it was cinema. So don't worry, there's nothing new here with Marvel.
no,
But I do. What all I'm just saying is that I think Star Wars was a December blockbuster that came at the right moment and therefore was able to get some noms. Because
hmm,
No Way Home is it came out after No Time to Die and it's the more popular movie, it could replicate that same thing. So very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Agreed. I think that's pretty much it for the guilds. Let me look over and make sure. Oh, wait, one more. Art Directors Guild. So let's see. The Art Directors Guild, which I'm pretty sure is pretty much the same as production design.
Yes, they changed the name of the category in the early 2010s. Of it was Best Art Direction, then they changed it to Best Production Design.
Yeah. So period feature film was French Dispatch, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, Tragedy of Macbeth, West Side Story. Good list there. I don't think there's any big snubs there that I can think of.
No, and I will say to your point that
No
Nightmare Alley,
Belfast.
no Belfast, which is surprising because I do think one of the more
Yeah.
admirable efforts is that I think they built that street, though the street
You can
did
kind of
feel
tell
very
that they built it
built,
though.
and I think which I think it didn't feel like Parasite,
Felt
which
like a
felt
set.
seamless. Um, I will say to your point that Nightmare Alley was showing up on these lists, and could that possibly give way to more attention and possible nominations at the Oscars. I think a lot of these nominations are because they split them up based on like
Yeah,
period and like
yeah.
genre, and so
Period is usually where most of the contenders are contending
yeah.
though. Like it did beat Belfast here, which I would say it's. I don't think Belfast is getting it at the Oscars. I would say Nightmare Alley would get nominated for production design at the Oscars.
It's very possible, but I still think that the Academy a lot of times just votes one movie down the ballot, and I just see Belfast being a possible
Potentially, yeah.
recipient of that type of thinking. But that's what, like, I wouldn't think like, oh, Nightmare Alley showing up in all these guilds. I don't. It's because they need to fill the category, and it is deserving. But I think because it's all these genre qualifications that's why it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the other ones, like fantasy feature film, it was Cruella, Dune, Ghostbusters Afterlife, The Green Knight, and Shang-Chi. Like, I don't think any of those were really contending besides Dune for any Oscar spots.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. It'll definitely. I've said that a lot this episode, but we're talking about a lot of
Yeah,
interesting things. Um,
it will be.
but yeah, I think Dune is pretty much guaranteed. I think West Side Story is pretty much guaranteed.
I
Um,
think French Dispatch is probably going to happen.
yeah, I would love it too. I love that film, one of my top 10 favorites of the year. So yeah, and then maybe Tragedy of Macbeth, maybe Nightmare Alley, maybe Belfast. I think they're all fighting. So we'll see. It's definitely a year that I think is pitting a lot of different types of production design in terms of we have world creating, like the
Mhm.
expansive world creating production design of a Dune compared to the small intimate production design of a Belfast. So one definitely to look out for.
Definitely. So that's it for the guilds. There's a few other mini news items that I thought we could maybe quickly touch on. First off, Francis Ford Coppola is finally returning to movies. He's making he's what's it called? Self-financing his own film for 100 to 120 million dollars,
Oh, wow.
called Megalopolis, starring Oscar Isaac, Kate Blanchett, Michelle Pfeiffer, Jessica Lange, Zendaya, and even more. Um, what do you think of this?
Great cast. Love to see Michelle
Yeah,
Pfeiffer in the play here. I mean, Coppola is no stranger to self-financing. He
yeah.
self-financed, The Godfather. Or at least it was a
He runs some sort of
definitely,
business too that
yeah.
makes him a ton of money. I
He
think
definitely was,
alcohol.
yeah, responsible for it. Uh, so listen,
Yeah,
Francis Ford Coppola. I don't hold him in the same regard as like the great filmmakers as some other people do. I think
I
he
don't
made
either.
three exceptional films with The Two Godfathers and Apocalypse Now. And maybe this is his fourth. Though I do think
Hmm.
rarely, I know we had Spielberg's West Side Story, but like I feel like very rarely are a lot of the like the that class of filmmakers creating great works of art today.
Bill. Yeah,
Scorsese and Ridley Scott and Steven Spielberg and Coppola. Lucas hasn't been making anything since I think the prequels. So
yeah,
that's why I'm just like, I don't think this is necessarily like, oh, look out, here we go. The 97th Oscars are going to be
yeah. I
all
don't
of
know.
whatever this movie is. But
We'd have
it's
to
still
know more
definitely
about
one.
it.
Yeah, it's still definitely one to look out for, and I think
Yeah,
definitely could be a really great work of art.
for that cast alone. I'm excited seeing Zendaya there. I think that's an interesting pick. I'm glad it's not just older people, some younger people too. And Kate Blanchett is freaking everywhere.
Oh my
She
god,
is
yeah.
everywhere.
Well, I
Insane.
mean, she's just great. I mean, I saw her do an interview on Graham Norton, and she's just so likable. It
She
doesn't
is.
surprise me. And man, Zendaya's riding that euphoria train all over Hollywood. That
Yeah,
really
as she
did
should.
wonders.
Yeah.
People got to remember, 10 years ago, she was on the Disney Channel,
Shake it up.
acting alongside Bella Thorne. Shake it up,
Yep.
exactly. So,
Very
my
different career paths, those two.
very different career path. Zendaya is very, very smart.
She
Um,
is.
just listen to her euphoria behind the episode whenever she talks about it. She's, really, really smart. I'm very
Smart
happy
business.
she's getting
Business
started.
mind. Sundance is going on right now. One of the most popular films there, most well regarded, was Cha Cha Real Smooth with Dakota Johnson. And it is one of the first films to have already been acquired by Apple for $15 million. Um, I believe that's a little less than what they paid for Coda this past year, but still very, very big buy. And they did do a good job with Coda this year, campaigning wise. So I do think this could mean good things for this movie come next year.
Yeah, I think they proved Apple is. I think Apple TV Plus has really have done a tremendous job with their streamer. And I think what really makes them different is just really quality shows and movies. I think
Yeah.
Ted Lasso. I really love Defending Jacob.
Yeah, that was good.
Though I think it was a little wobbly in the second season. I think The Morning Show is a really strong brand for them. And then their movies, they really have been doing a nice job launching since 2019, the end of 2019, I think a week before Disney Plus. So yeah, let's see what happens. Dakota Johnson, of course, is doing a lot on the indie front. She reminds me a lot of Aubrey Plaza's work
Yeah.
in the indie front. And I think this could show up. It depends. I haven't heard much about the film. I do know a lot of people regarded it well, but I also know that a lot of people regarded it well among a very, I think, unanimous kind of feeling among these titles this year at Sundance that it was just very underwhelming. So
Uh,
whether when this movie stands on its own, it can translate the same way that Coda seemed to do, we'll have to
yeah.
wait and see when they release it. I do think, though, that if they're smart, they'll probably wait to release it until later because, I mean, I think the only reason why Coda is performing so well is because a lot of these movies are mediocre or didn't hit like House of Gucci did. The fact that they released that movie in August, it's like I
It
think
was a
no,
bad choice. Yeah.
it's a bad choice. It ended up working out, but I,
Yeah.
I would probably predict that they hold on this movie till like November, a real fall award season date,
They
unless
should.
they
Yeah.
get more acquisitions.
I mean, they've already got Killers of the Flower Moon too, so they've got that to worry about next year. But hopefully they can push for this too. I mean, it's not like Apple is running out of money, so
No,
by any means. So have you seen any Sundance films this year?
I did not. I'm
No.
hoping that next year I can maybe go. But I did not get the chance to see any Sundance films. I did catch up on a couple other 2021 films. I got to see a film called Limbo, which is on HBO Max right now. It's a film that is a very very witty but very deeply emotional film about the refugee experience, about waiting for citizenship. It's really, really inventive. It's one of the most, yeah, for me personally, it would win the best cinematography award. It was just
Oh wow.
such beautiful cinematography. If you haven't seen it, it's on HBO Max. It's called Limbo. Definitely, I can't recommend it higher. It would definitely be an honorable mention for one of the best films of the year. And
Nice.
I'm thankful. If you don't listen to them, I listen to the Breakfast All Day podcast with Alonzo
Yeah.
Duralde and Christy Lemire. They are wonderful. I'm a Patreon supporter of them, and Alonzo Duralde had it on his top 10 of the list, and so I checked it out thanks to him, and I'm very happy I did. So if you haven't seen that one, check that out. Also,
Yeah.
I checked out Parallel Mothers, which was really fantastic. I wished Penelope Cruz was in conversation and Melina Smith because they both deserve to. And I have tickets to see Flea this weekend.
I'm
Finally,
jealous. I need to see that.
I know I'm so excited when I saw that the show times were at my local theater. So I will be seeing that this weekend, and maybe I'll be able to bring it to our next episode, which
Yeah,
hopefully, if the
hopefully.
plans stick,
Hopefully.
we'll finally be doing
Our
the
picks.
our picks with Ben. All three of us picking all of our picks, together for all
It's
our
gonna be crazy.
categories.
Yeah.
We'll be throwing in Power of the Dog and Lost Daughter and Malignant, and stuff. It'll be
Yeah,
a fun
Malignant.
discussion. Um, Definitely, I'm very excited.
Yeah, definitely. I did see two Sundance films that came out. Thanks to you, Taka, who got me the tickets. Surprisingly, thank you enough. Nice surprise gift.
I thought that was
For
the title of the movie for a second.
yeah, the Utaka gift. The first one I saw was Master, which I forget the director's name, but it stars Regina Hall. It's pretty much about her being the first black mad like headmaster of a college. It's also a bit of a horror film, and it's about like pretty much institutionalized racism, and then with the horror aspects surrounding that. It was very good. Besides the ending, I really enjoyed
That's
all of
fun.
it. Yeah,
um,
I would say it takes some inspiration from stuff like Get Out and such, where you combine horror with topical racial issues. And there's also a younger actress who's a black female student in a large, because it's a like almost I forget the exact school, but it's a very high level school. Um, so there's also that whole issue, and she's being haunted by whatever the creature. I don't want to spoil too much, but the horror aspect of the film is haunting her. So I'd say it's very well done overall, and I'd check it out when it hits Amazon
The
Prime in March.
the writer and director of that is Mariama Diallo.
Yes,
Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. So yeah, it sounds great. I'll put that on the list.
she did a good job. Yeah, I liked everything except the ending. The last few minutes was not my cup of tea, but everything else was really
Minutes,
good.
really. It was that quick. Wow.
Yeah, maybe probably like last 10 minutes. Yeah, I was just like they were doing. It just felt like out of nowhere the choices they made. Like it just didn't fit with what the rest of the
Reminds
film was
me
about.
of Candyman, the new Candyman. You're
Yeah,
describing.
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, a lot of similarities there. And the other one was Something in the Dirt, which is a very small film. I also forget the director's name. They directed it, and they also were the only two stars in it. So pretty much a small project. It's about two guys. One guy just moved in. Their neighbors. Like basically they just come across this big sci-fi anomaly in their room, and it's kind of like found footage. They're trying to make a documentary about it. It was good overall. I would say there it gets a little repetitive at points. But I would say I overall had a good time with it. That one did have a good ending. I think the ending is probably my favorite part of that one. So yeah,
So we needed the ending of that one and the rest of the movie of the other
yeah,
one. We have a perfect
combine them
movie.
both and it's perfect. Yeah,
Um, Sounds
two
good.
good films.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it'll be interesting, especially with the Sundance having to be. It was virtual, right, this year.
it was. Yeah,
So we'll see what happens in terms of acquisitions and the marketing and the release of any of those films. But
yeah,
definitely some to check out and keep a lookout for.
definitely.
Um,
Doesn't seem like there's a ton of contenders from this year's crop.
yeah, which is unfortunate. But again,
Yeah,
I mean, as somebody who did make a couple films in the pandemic, it
it's
was
hard.
to do that. It's hard, especially when you don't have the resources possibly to do it. So I completely applaud. I mean, I applaud any filmmaker who
Yeah,
applauds to do anything, but especially during this time, especially when you don't have the resources, it's difficult. And I hope I get a chance to see some of these films.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. I think Master comes to Amazon Prime in like a few weeks. So that'll be soon.
Not the master, just
No,
man.
just Master. Close. The Master's also a good movie. Probably better than that movie. Yeah. That's pretty much it for this week, unless you have anything else. I think Oscar voting just begun today. So Oscar voters vote for Tessa Thompson in passing. That's all I have to say. And everyone in mass. But you're not going to do that. So yeah.
I mean, my outlier picks. I would love to see the Lost Daughter get into picture, but I don't think that's going to happen. It could, but I don't think it will. I'm trying to think. Is there any other? I
I
mean,
would say
again, um, what were
snub
you gonna say?
being the Ricardos overall.
I mean,
Please.
freaking snub don't look
Please.
up. If we can wish for stuff we
Yeah.
don't want to
I'd
happen,
be fine with that
there's
too.
a lot of things I wish don't happen.
Yeah. Snub
um,
Belfast.
but if you want some of our specific picks, make sure again to come
Next
next
week.
for our next episode. Uh, it's going to be a lot of fun where we go through most of the categories at the Oscars. We're
Pretty
throwing a
much.
couple of our own.
Yeah. A few
Um,
fun ones.
and I believe, different from our discussion at the top of the year, we kind of just went over our favorites. I think the three of us will have to compromise and pick.
We will. There's only 5
Out.
slots for everything except picture. So
And we're all very different in terms of how we approach
yes.
this. So it'll be definitely
Especially
a fun
especially
conversation.
Diamond. He's gonna have some fun
But
suggestions.
you know what? I love him for it. And I
Yeah.
definitely think Malignant, definitely the biggest snub will probably be Malignant for best makeup and hairstyling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely one that's deserving. It's such a
Yeah.
fun movie.
It is.
So yeah, that's it for
That's
this
it for
week.
this week. Yeah. So like the video, subscribe, comment all of your thoughts on all these crazy guild stuff down below. And yeah, tune in next week for our picks for the Oscars. And yeah, let us know who you would nominate either today or next week. Thanks for watching and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.